Hi all, Mark here with The-Exiles, joined by senior instructor Ivan from Barking, and behind the cameras lead instructor Rupert from South Essex, which is where we are today. So we're going to do a couple of videos. The first video of the day is I've had some questions around the counter to the false point play. Okay, so we'll show the false point play. This is from Fiore's Gioco Largo, sword in two hands, the wide and loose section. We'll show that play and then we'll show the counter, because the question I've had is around where your arms are ending up with that counter. So let's look at the actual play first. So I'll do the play first, we'll do it slowly, okay? So in effect, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to sell a big action so that my opponent reacts to that action, okay? This is hence false point, basically. So it doesn't really matter where I start from, we'll both start from high. In effect, what I'm doing is I'm sending in a really telegraphed mezzano strike, a middle strike, okay? I'm intentionally trying to get my opponent to react to that and wide space himself, okay? So if we come at an angle here, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get Ivan to basically overreach himself, okay? Now Fiore talks about making a little bit of contact and then turning the weapon, hence false point. So if he's more experienced and I send that same strike and he doesn't react the way that I'd like him to, then we're going to have to access different plays, okay? So the whole point of this is that I'm selling it to someone who doesn't know any better, okay? So once he's overreached himself, it's very straightforward. All I do is, with the turn of my weapon, I basically just come onto the other side of his body. So if we swap sides, so I sell the big strike and I give it a turn. There's loads of options as to how I give it a turn. I can keep my hands low, I can keep my hands high, but in effect I'm just trying to open him up, okay? A little bit of contact, make the turn, all right? So we're here and we're over, okay? That is the principle of false point. So let's talk about the counter, okay? So we're shown a counter to this action. There's one very critical thing that needs to happen for that counter to work properly, and we'll get to that in a second. There's often some confusion, especially when you look at the images in the different manuscripts, as to where my arms end up in relation to my opponent, okay? So let's say that Ivan is doing that play to me. You could make the argument that I wouldn't react in the same way. Remember, I'm supposed to be the person that knows better, but in the heat of the moment, it's very likely sometimes I can also overstretch myself. So Ivan is going to send in the big cut. I'm going to react to it and he's going to do the play. Okay? At this point, we have the start of the counter. Okay? The big cell comes in and what I'm going to do is effectively get myself offline. Okay? Now the question is often asked, and it has been asked in this case, where does my own weapon end up? Because in the manuscript, certainly the Getty manuscript, it looks like my weapon is inside of this space here. It looks like I'm on the inside of his weapon and between his arms, okay? It's more likely that you'll actually end up here on top of their arms. So what I wanted to do is explain why we can see this manifest itself in different ways. The easy answer is I do the action regardless, okay? It's the same action to me and I figure out where I end up. So Ivan does the big shell and I basically just get myself offline, okay? Now you'll notice in this instance, my weapon is on top of his, but I've still got the center, okay? Because I've brought myself offline, I'm safe from his thrust, okay? He can't thrust at me, I'll come offline, I've put my own point back online. So that's kind of option one. If we go a bit slower, I've made the cover, he's done the turn. This is option two. All I've done is come offline and try and win the center again. But now I'm on top of his arm. Okay, so he can't thrust at me. He can do other stuff, but I can thrust at him. Okay, I'm just winning back the center. And then we have the manuscript image, okay, or the Getty, where I'm here and I drop it in. Pardon me. Yes. I'm here, and as he lets go, I'm fighting for the center. Now I'm on the inside of his arms, and that's actually a really good example of what can happen. The main takeaway is I don't care, okay? What I'm trying to do is come offline and drop my own point back into the center, okay? So sometimes it can be on the inside like this, sometimes it can be over the top like that, Sometimes it can be over the top of his weapon. The main thing is that I'm safe from the thrust and I've got my own point back on. He's still got a lot of options from there. Okay, he can start to employ both ends of that weapon. He can also refight for the center. But in the purest terms, those are the two plays, the false point and then the counter to the false point. So just to recap, it doesn't really matter where I end up. The main thing I'm trying to do is get my body offline. Okay, so I'm safe from this and I've got my own thrust lined up. It's very quick. I'm going to be thrusting. That's the counter.
Keep going.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, it comes next. One more, a good measure. I'll try to be inside this
Your
time.
back's always to the really cool one.